share, allow to share screen. So I can share this entire screen for right now. So to get us started, I will introduce myself real quick. I am Brandon Tomesco. I am the Boston MuleSoft community leader. I'm also a MuleSoft ambassador and MuleSoft architect. I normally do a mix of in-person and virtual events. This is our first virtual event of the year, and I decided I want to bring together a group of amazing gentlemen together to talk about anything and everything architect related. So for the first 40 to 50 minutes, it'll be a conversation that I'll be asking them questions, and then they'll be basically bouncing off of each other, answering the question, adding to the question, piggybacking off the question, and then for the last 20 to 30 minutes, it will be a mix of networking and asking questions related to what the community provides. So the Q&A is enabled as well. Feel free to add your questions there. I may also use those throughout the Fireside conversation too of it all, but for now, I'm actually going to pass this over to Juan first, and then we can go down the line of introducing ourselves.
All right. Well, hello. My name is Juan Crufaso. I am based in Argentina. I've been working with MuleSoft for a couple of years now. I don't want to count them. I'm now with the role of integration architect, and I'm a MuleSoft ambassador. I'm working at Avio Consulting and with some project in the US right now. What else? I've been developing on the integration for almost 19 years now. In other life, I used other integration tools, so I've been in the integration ecosystem for quite a long time with different roles and different tools, but always doing integrations.
And then we'll go on to Shravan.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Shravan Kumar Nerala. I'm a integration practice lead at K2 Partnering Solutions, and I'm a MuleSoft ambassador. Recently got this role. Super excited, and I'm also a MuleSoft Meetup leader for Detroit. And I have about 10 years of experience in this industry. And I started my career as a full stack web developer, and then slowly transitioned into the MuleSoft world, and I started loving my journey so much. And currently, I'm an integration architect, like I said, and it's a super fun job, you know.
And then last but certainly not least is Jagan.
I'm Jagan Mahalingam. I have been in the system integration space for a long time. I started working some mainframes, and I have done pretty much a lot of things that we see on a daily basis. I've done Oracle, TIBCO, and some of the very old and very old style integration platforms. And MuleSoft, I have been working since for the past 7-8 years. I've been involved in MuleSoft since Mule 3. I think Mule has come a long way, actually, long way. From where it started as a platform to move, bunch of data from point A to point B as a mule. Today, this mule has a lot of brain to it. It's taking a completely new shape. It almost looks like when I see the mule, the logo, it looks like that guy is flying now. It's beginning to fly now. It has.
Yes.
So it has gone a long way. So I think since I have dealt with so many platforms, I know that what platforms do well and what they don't do well. And there are, honestly, the MuleSoft does a lot of things very well, actually. I have implemented MuleSoft in at least about 15 customers. So I would like to share anything that you all want to hear from me in this Fireside chat.
All right. So then, quick reminder again, because I see more folks are starting to join and everything. Q&A is enabled, so feel free to add your questions throughout the conversations that we're having for the first 40 to 50 minutes. We will be having these conversations. I may end up using some of those questions as well throughout this. Then the last 20, 30 minutes, it will be a mix of networking and then asking community questions that you guys also provide. So as I said, I want to try to make this as community involved as possible. Additionally, for the folks that are attending right now, if you stay till the very end, you do have a chance to win one of 2 certification vouchers that you can use for the $100, $200, or $400 ones. Those are like the architect level certifications. So hoping I'll stay till the very end to see if y'all win one of the certification vouchers. But to kick everything off, I am actually going to start off with Jagan, because you actually had something come up at the top of my head, which is Mule 3 and Mule 4. Throughout your career and everything, what are some of the things that you've seen change now that Mule 4 is out compared to Mule 3?
Yeah, it's mainly, whatever Mule 3, Mule 3 was mainly, like I said, moving data from point A to point B. Then when the API landscape was changing, they quickly adopted the API gateway and the API platform. That actually, surprisingly, to everyone's surprise, the adoption of the API platform, the API layers, were much stronger than the integration layer itself. And there were, at one point, we had most of our customers using as the API platform than the integration. So there were also some little bit of internal retraining was going on around the time. So in terms of platform, since it was the data view itself, it originated from Scala, if I'm right. It originated from Scala.
Yeah.
So the data views back then, it was a game changer. Actually, it could transform huge messages. I have transformed a very large EDA transaction. If you have to hand code it, you would take months to hand code and debug. Maybe with the recent AI tools and all, it's probably it's easier to do in any language. Yeah. So the biggest changes were around around data view, and then the ecosystem has a lot of connectors to it. You name any backend platform, any the SAP, Oracle platforms, and also proprietary finance system, proprietary insurance systems. There are connectors available for most of them. So I think if you had asked me, what would one thing I would felt different when I used MuleSoft is the amount of actual time I needed to do the development drastically went down. It went down drastically from the prior models, even from TIBCO times. It is because there were so many connectors, and honestly, even in my own development, a lot of times I only added did about 20 to 30% of new code. About 70% code, I have to copy from a template and then start adding few things. The application will be available. And then on the security side, they made a lot of changes, and the one significant change that happened in the last 4 or 5 years was they adopted Kubernetes in several ways. Actually, you can bring your own Kubernetes, and then or you can Kubernetes on your own platform. MuleSoft can run, and then the Cloud Hub 2.0 behind the scenes. It's the cubes are sitting there. And there is the reason they could do agents so well was the deployment model was it was so cohesive they could easily enable agents there. Otherwise, the enabling agent would not have been this easy actually.
Yeah.
So it's a surprise, how it evolved. It almost looked like somebody back then wrote that hey, you do this and 10 years later it's going to happen, so it's going to be so good. So I see that the gateway, it started as a small project within Mule ecosystem, and then it became Flux Gateway, and quickly they are transitioned to Omni Gateway, which is which is central to the agents. So I think the surprising thing is with all the platform that I mentioned, this has this platform has the survivability. I'm still wondering for somehow it figures out what's going to happen 5 years from now, and the grassroots are starting already. So those are some of my high level thoughts.
That's fantastic. Oh, let's see. Who's messaging? Got distracted by messages and everything. Squirrel moment here. So then adding to that, like we had been talked about this earlier in the week too, Shravan, piggybacking off of like what Jagan just also talked about too on your end, because I know that you're also a practice lead and everything, and you also work within consulting. What with your clients are you seeing in conversation as it relates to agent versus API versus automation kind of situation? And then Juan and Jagan, if y'all want to add to that as he answers it as well.
Sure.
See, currently there is this AI hype, I would say, the hype train that's kind of like going over right now. And there is like a lot of clients who are really interested to utilize agents. They kind of identify like amazing workflows that they really want to see. And they kind of like say like, hey, you know what, this is what we have in mind. For example, for a financial institution, they want to like build some kind of a help desk kind of a situation, help desk kind of a thing, or some kind of some different scenarios per se right now. All of these things are like really really cool, but the thing is like the most of these things don't really require agent. They kind of like function directly based off the workflows that they already have, and they're much faster. Unless you're kind of providing some kind of a human intelligence to this particular process, they don't really add up anything to it. So once we kind of like talk through the client, saying like, hey, you know what, this is what your thinking process is, and we start off with something like, okay, what kind of data that you have, or what kind of workflows that you have, and what are the processes that you're kind of like interacting with, and what is the groundwork that kind of enables security wise, and everything comes into play. And once everything's laid out properly, only then they realize, okay, some of these things are actually can be done without with just the workflows, and keep it going, so that's one of the key things while we walk them through this process. Um, uh, One quick thing that I want to point out is see, the agents are really cool. They're really really beautiful. They're kind of like very fun to watch and everything, but without your proper governance and proper data and workflows in place, these agents kind of get very non-deterministic, meaning like they can be like unpredictable in nature, and they can start doing things that are uncontrollable, and they can just mess up your data, so that's my take on that. And most of the time, prefer your deterministic workflows over your non-deterministic workflows. First focus on getting your APIs, or getting your automations right. And once you establish that, adding an AI layer on top of it, it's a much simpler task compared to like giving all the tools to your agent and say like, you know what, this is my process and do this for me. So that's how I kind of like think about those.
And also, Shravan, when you are even implementing an API, that's like the key. If the companies that we are working with, and usually they are not software companies, they are companies that they do something else, which is, I always highlight the same thing. They will use software for their main goal, not building software. So the attention that they give to software sometimes is not like the one we would like to, but we need to adapt. And also trying to build agents or even process API or process or modeling existing process that they have on an ad hoc way, it's very challenging. And that's like the key in order to bring things into the between codes the code. Because if they don't have a formal way of doing things or a formalized process on their end, it's very difficult to achieve any kind of code, even not even into agents, a processes, API processes. So I've been on my previous products. I used to work with BPM software, and BPM software was intended to model a business process and then give a system to support that process and adapt that process during time, where you can start getting some metrics and KPIs. So there is a business side of these, let's say, challenges that we need to address from the architectural perspective, that if you don't cover that, whatever you will build, it will fail because they will not use it. It will be just one more burden on the daily work that they are doing. That's why it's very important to understand on each case where you are standing for, what you are trying to achieve, and if there is any process already in place. Because if the process doesn't exist, you will not do anything.
Correct, correct. So if I can add on just one point, see, there is some level of the fear of missing out on most of the enterprises. They want to do it. The pressure mostly, majority, it comes from a little bit from business, some from the CIOs. We want to do agents. Everybody's doing. And then a lot of pressure comes from the technical cadre. They all want to get into agents. They want to do agents, so they don't miss out on the cool thing that's going on. And then for the people who adopted REST APIs, most of the Mule customers, it's actually easy, because in order to do agents, you need two things. You need the AI layer, and then you need tools. The tools are in REST API. They already done it. So it's kind of easy to enable that. So there is a lot of push. But like Shravan said, I do see that, do they really need an agent? Well, actually, no, I have a simple test to ask, a simple test to do. But, in order to do an agent, do we have everything? Let's say they want to do an agent for a project. So get the best 5 people, best 5 business team in that group and put them in a room. Okay, I'm going to give all the data. What data do you need? I write on a whiteboard and tell them, okay, if this data, I give all this data, and this is the business problem you want to solve. Do you have everything? You should not ask for anything more. All you have is, these 5 people and this data. Then they may say that, yeah, we do this, but at the end of, there is a workflow that is approved by this one person. And that one person, he does, on the 15th of month, he runs a script every month. So we have to include all of that. Now you know that, realizing the real benefits of this agent will not come until you pull in those 2 things. And that could be a huge challenge for the enterprise. In an enterprise, there are a lot of departments, right? If something in some other department, how would you even know? So then they get into data collection. So can we even collect all the data do we need? So if we see that the agents, a lot of people want to do agents, but why there is a delay in deploying? They can deploy, but why there is a delay in realizing? It's probably there is always everybody is finding 1 or 2 missing pieces. It actually comes from business, and once they solve it, then they can accelerate these processes. I don't know, maybe 100 times or 1,000 times. But filling these business gaps is not usually it's difficult, right? But for MuleSoft it is. For MuleSoft, it is somewhat easier because all their tools are there, all their system APIs, process API, experience APIs are there. If they know how to fill the gaps, they can actually create an agent very easily.
True.
Yeah,
that is true.
So kind of going off of that more, and Juan, I think you've worked with it, and I could be wrong. If not, I'll probably point it back to Shravan. Is there's been an sort of discourse that I've been seeing on LinkedIn and even professional circles as it relates to using AI itself for helping with our coding and everything. In MuleSoft specifically, we have MuleSoft Vibes. There's also Claude Code as well. How are you using any of those tools? And if you are, do you have any recommendations or tips on how to properly use those tools?
Sure. At least on my end, I have a couple of different attempts to use it. Usually, in certain, always there is a balance. When the task that you need to do, it will be faster to just go and do it rather than create a prompt, and then I always go and do it. But sometimes, in some occasions, there are certain mappings that require certain, let's say, volume. For example, when you are doing a domain value translation where you are getting a couple of keys and you need to uh, put something out that it's very repetitive or simple things, I try to use AI tools in a couple of ways. Times I use MuleSoft Vibes. I just drop the CSV files with the mapping with some prompting. It was able to create. It was not a very complex data, but it was a very straightforward one. But for me, it was good enough, and it helped me to speed up the development. And there's also another way to use also AI in the development. In the company I'm working with, we have certain some agents that they were created with some sub agents. We have one orchestration agent and one for develop, one sub agent for development, one sub agent for DM units, and one to run everything and give the outcome. So I tried that a couple of times, but in my experience, at least with those agents, it didn't add too much value because the project that I was working with, I was in that project involved for a couple of years now. So for me, it was much more faster to just go and change the things, but it was me. In some other cases, I think that it may speed up a couple of things. However, there is a balance that you need to always have when using AI. When you have things like creating a project from scratch, you would probably want to use an archetype or things like that, because that kind of task is very deterministic. You don't need to use AI to gen all the project files. That's something you don't want to spend the money with. You would like to, you have the archetype technology, it's there for a couple of years now. Use that. Then use the AI to speed up things like analyzing edge cases, verify that the code that you are creating compiles with what you want, or even in sometimes to do some pull requests and checks on certain portion of codes that require certain alignment. There are also another thing that we have been using is skills. We created certain skills so that the generated codes aligns to what we are using in other projects. And something that I also did, and then I found that there was a task and an operation in, command, sorry, in Cloud Code to do the same thing. Every time I started with open code project that I wanted to update, the first prompt was to, okay, analyze the project and create the MD file to keep doing code in the same way that this project is created and have. So that way, every time I need to add code, it will align and try to mimic what we have in the project. So that's also very important. Then I found when I learned cloud code that you have the command init. That command creates the cloud memd file that analyzes your code and keeps the guidelines of what you have in place. So it's an interesting tool that it will speed up development a lot, but I have the feeling that in some cases you will have to balance between your knowledge, what you have to do, and the time you have.
Yeah.
So just adding on top of that, Juan, I kind of was using like a codex and as well as like cursor for my development. And what you mentioned is absolutely true. I kind of use like archetypes to generate my projects. And then I kind of build some kind of skills and rules within my projects, saying that, hey, here are the things. This is how my file naming schemes are like, otherwise like some kind of like how the flow needs to be designed, when to use a flow versus a subflow, private flows, and things like that. We kind of have a segregated logic for each one of those, and track them part of one single repo. So next time when we are kind of using this part of data, AI kind of like our codex or the cursor, it kind of like understands, okay, here are the details that needs to be performed, and then it already has the context towards what needs to be performed right away, and it writes the code in a much easy way, I mean better way of like putting together the project. That's something that we have done too. And one additional thing that I would like to add is, we have built a skill for specifically for like end-to-end testing. So this is something I have recently put together a blog too, showing like how we can utilize something like a playwright to do some kind of end-to-end testing. So things like that, they kind of like enable in they kind of enable you to like speed up, it gives you speed up on development and then give you the right productivity towards like looking at focusing on the right steps of the process. And whereas for the pull requests, I kind of like I kind of feel like I have to be the gateway towards the secure code always, rather than an AI being that secure gate. So I kind of say like whenever you're kind of creating a pull request, let a human do the review rather than an AI picking it up and doing the testing and everything. And that's my personal take on it. So you have a better knowledge of what's being pushed into the repositories, and what's being deployed into the production environments or dev environments, and you can control them as when they really happened. Um, yeah, and personally, I kind of feel like I have used Codex 5.4 thinking and 5.5 thinking. I kind of felt like they're two like really really good tools. And whereas for the MuleSoft Vibes, with the proper skill setup, I think it's really really fast sometimes. And sometimes I kind of feel like it's kind of runs a bit slower compared to the GPT and Claude code. And that's my uh, initial observations from it actually.
And something interesting to say that we're
Yeah.
talking about tools that they don't even have a year old.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's amazing
true.
because
Yeah.
everything is like moving too fast. So probably in a couple of months, we will be talking about something else that is on top of all this.
I think
Man,
Right.
I think we
I-
are already at a position where like it's not. I think we're just moving too fast right now. Everything's like instead of you prompting it, the agents are prompting each other to actually build things faster in a long running tasks. I think that's even more cooler actually. That's my personal take on how agents are kind of progressing right now. And in the future, maybe it's just you projecting the idea through a voice and let that whole thing plan out and give you a architecture towards this is how it might look like.
I'm probably gonna get in trouble for like mentioning it like this, but thinking about Wally and how in the future they were all sitting in the chair and projecting things from their head and everything. Like that's where we're heading.
I kind of feel like maybe that's an idealistic future, possibly, but with AI, I kind of feel like more ideas are going to flow in much
Yeah.
faster. And I don't think humans are going to be just sitting down and relaxing, but more focused on much more productive things, possibly. Maybe like,
Yeah,
yeah,
correct, correct.
that's a thought. Yeah.
Yeah, if I want to add one thing, see, using cursor to write, let's say, Java code or JavaScript code, there is no visual component to Java code. You write Java code and you read the code, but there is a visual component to anypoint flows, right? So now, even though you use cursor to create the flow or modify the flow, if the visual component adds, kind of, we always, whenever I use AI to modify my code, I still bring in, load it in the Studio. Right now, I'm using Studio. Maybe at some point, Code Builder, just to see, the how the flow is laid out. So I think that I see that there is a small disconnect there. These tools are able to quickly make the changes to the XML files, but visualizing XML files, it's not readily there. I cannot click a button and see the XML there yet, the flow yet. I think that if that disconnect is merged, it'll be great. I'm pretty sure if I'm talking about it, I'm pretty sure at least 10 developers are working on it right now. Somebody's so it's going to happen. But surprisingly, these Mule XML files, these AI tools are extremely conversant.
Yeah.
They can understand, they can change, and they can do as much whatever they do with JavaScript or Java, they can do on XML files. So it's pretty, it lends itself to the AI development.
So that's actually a good segue into there's two questions that have been submitted, and one of them I want to tackle right now, and then we'll probably tackle the other one after. So this one's from the chat. If AI agents become the primary consumers of APIs, how would API-led connectivity evolve in MuleSoft? And should AI agents invoke system APIs directly, or must stick to process APIs to ensure governance and orchestration? So whoever wants to dive into that one.
I can try. Shravan, go ahead, Shravan. I'll add on to after you. Yeah. Please proceed.
Yeah. So I think one of the things is like API-led architecture. It's kind of is like we were talking earlier. The API-led architecture itself is kind of like providing you the right tools for your agents, right? So think I kind of say like don't give full access to your systems, rather give access to a workflow. So the reason for that is the reason why that is AI agents are very non-deterministic, meaning like they kind of like identify what are the tools available, and then they kind of make the calls multiple times as they need it until they feel like this is completed. Instead of doing that, if you were able to give it a proper workflow to it and let it perform that workflow for you, that's a better way of handling things. Meaning like that's a combination of a hybrid, a deterministic and a non-deterministic thinking. So keeping it that would give you the right set of tools to keep your agent in check and as well as your workflows in check. And that's my take on it. And whereas for the authentication and everything, right now we have something like a federated. I forgot its name. So something federated governance or something like that.
Yes, to propagate the ID of the caller to the downstream APIs.
Yes.
Across the agent.
Yeah. So I think with that feature, I kind of feel like the more the agents started to use our API-led architectures, I think you will have a proper visibility of like what really happened and a complete trace of information that's easy for us to track around. Again, my take: don't give access to system APIs. Keep it on the experience layer or on the process layers if you don't have an experience layer. And then this layer would be something like your semantic layer, and then you're kind of exposing your MCP servers on top of it, so your agents can actually talk with these servers directly.
Correct. Yeah. If I may add on to that, Shravan, do you want to add any other points?
No, I'm please.
Okay, yeah. So basically, the system APIs are, it's really a proxy for the backend systems. Let's say I'm an airline. For my airline, I may have two systems: one system to make the reservation, another system to do the banking transaction. Let's say somebody buys a ticket. I have to commit in my reservation system, and I also have to connect to the banking system to pull the money and do something. So I may have two system APIs. So in this case, I may have a process API called, make the reservation. So in this instance, in this example, if I have an agent to do the reservation, I will not give the access to system API, because system API does, two different things. There are transactions across the system APIs and all that. So the system, this is an example for what Shravan said. Provide access to process API for agents to access. But experience API is the one that can be debated in some cases. Experience API is for specific stereotype of users, specific class of users. In this case, the class of user is an agent. It's not a person holding an iPhone or a person holding on a web browser or some other system. It's an agent. So probably somebody can do away with the experience APIs, but they probably they tie to process API, and then do their instead of going directly to the system API. Again, experience API also. I have seen a lot of cases where a lot of security is tied into the experience API. Starting from all the security, the governance related configurations are done on the Experience API. In that case, they may even be forced to flow through Experience API actually, because security is already configured there. Otherwise, they have to make sure they have to account for the security somewhere else. So definitely process API. I see that definitely agents talking to. There is a good chance agents are a good number of agents may be talking to process API. Some of them even Experience APIs. But I very rarely see API agents directly talking to system API, because they actually there may be transactions completely outside of system APIs across multiple system APIs.
Yes, and also that's something what you should mention at the end, Jegan, is very important, because people think about API calls, but like you said, there is in the enterprise usually you have a transaction, and with the transaction meaning you have a unit of work. On that unit of work, usually
Absolutely.
you have certain steps that you need to follow, and if something fails, usually you need to compensate, you need to do rollbacks, and that kind of stuff. If you just expose system APIs to the agents, it will be very difficult to confirm that it's doing the correct steps back if something fails. That's why it's very important to create safe nets to keep that unit of work safe, to maintain the transaction across the process. And if you don't have, it's a similar way that with the APIs itself, when you are exposing Experience API that you need to monetize, you need to take that into consideration. So with the agents, we are dealing with the same problem.
Exactly. So yeah. So corollary, an inference of that is, in your own organizations, you did the agentic projects, and the project, let's say, it did not yield the results, or it's kind of it doesn't work as expected. Take a look at it. How they did it? Did they open up the system APIs directly? Or did they do some of these things, which they should not have done? In that case, the outcome will not be what they expect. They may have a lot of rework to do. So it is better to the tool set. If they don't change the tool set and then bring in agents, the chances of them succeeding is very, very high. If they go and tinker with the tool set, then they will be it's almost like going back to the step one and then doing everything from there.
Yeah.
True.
So then continuing that kind of conversation with the shift and everything, and adding to even the very beginning of this conversation, where like MuleSoft has been shifting over the last two decades. Has it been almost 2 decades or more, or a decade? But we've seen API-led connectivity be the approach for MuleSoft and everything. And this year, last year specifically, the agent fabric has been introduced and is now like where MuleSoft and Salesforce is positioning itself. How do you see that moving? The positioning moving towards agent fabric as the infrastructure layer for enterprise AI agents. From where you sit, is that a genuine architectural shift or just a rebrand of MuleSoft's current approach, but now for agents?
Correct. Okay, I'll start, and then others can add. So it's almost like like I said earlier, it's kind of progressing. Actually, it's kind of progressing from where they started. So if somebody built the APIs in the way MuleSoft suggested initially in 2018, it will be just additional steps on top of it. Like, for example, if they did, if they had the system API and then, the other layers outside, now maybe the API-led connectivity, then it is, the adding stuff on top of it. Where the paradigm breaks is, it's see the API-led connectivity, the contract enforcement happened at the design time. For example, an Experience API decides, I'm going to call this, or the process API decides, I'm going to do this. If A happens, I'm going to call B. If B happens, I'm going to call C. But with agent, it's not design time enforcement. It's actually runtime enforcement. They actually, they look at prompts and then try to do things differently. So the contract enforcement is different. That the team that is implementing, they have to understand. I think a lot of use cases, a lot of real life use cases, even this may not be a big problem. The contract enforcement using with the agents, they'll be able to do it. The biggest challenge is going to be this is actually an architecture challenge: observability. In API today, you go to any of your Mule applications, you look at the logs. You can look at the logs, or you go to any point, the monitoring. You can see, how the APIs are connected. You can even figure out, hey, this call this call this. I know what exactly happened, right? That observability will be a challenge when we go for full blown agents. You know that all these APIs were called. You don't know, you'll find that for some transactions, they were called in this sequence ABC. In some other transactions, they were called ACBDE. I don't know why they were called this way, right? So that creating this observability is actually an architecture challenge. If you have, let's say there are customers they are running. I walked into customers, they have over 600 APIs. If they put agents, let's say for 600 API, and they put about 20 agents in front of them, and they want to observe what happened on some of those transactions, I think that's something in terms of architecture, it's no longer you log and look at the logs, everything what happened. They actually have to do something. They actually have to create some way of tracing the transactions and identifying, this trace actually means this intent is no longer a business case, right? It's intent. This trace means, I wanted to disable the customer. This trace means I wanted to disable the customer because he didn't pay the bill, right? So the observability is one of the architecture change that I'm seeing, and I'm seeing the platform by itself does not support today. Like I said, if I'm talking about it, at least over 10 people are already working on it. I'm seeing that maybe in the further releases, I'm pretty sure that they are going to address this observability. And if in any of your projects, if you are if you are already developing agents, please keep this in mind. How you are going to do the observability. At a minimum, you need to be able to trace your transaction and I would clearly understand what the intent of this transaction was.
And not only the intent, also you have to know if you have the capability to support the volume of transaction that the agent decide to do.
Correct.
So there's also another aspect, because usually people talk about agents and talks about how they can achieve the goal, but you need to support that. You need to support the number of API calls the agent will decide to do. And if you have more concurrent users, you need to know that your infrastructure will be able to respond to that demand.
Correct.
So there are also different aspects.
Exactly. Yeah, I would even warn. It's actually a warning. Actually, if let's say with the Omni Gateway, now they can import agents from other platforms too. Once you have Omni Gateway, and if you have agents running in let's say Bedrock, and some agents running in Salesforce, you can actually create an agent that actually consumes these two agents. Mm-hmm. How are you going to create the observability? Observability is a very big challenge, right? So without thinking about observability, if you create an agent that actually hops between two different platforms, you may want to really think, do you want to do it before completely addressing the observability? Otherwise, you deploy it, and then business asks, a few questions. You will actually take it down. You will not be able to answer those questions, and you may even you will take the agent down and then get back to the deterministic computation what you had before. If you don't think about observability and then actually address it.
Yep.
Yes, observability is one of the key, I would say, aspect of doing when you are architecturing a solution. If you need to confirm that you will be able to know when something fails, where to look at.
Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely.
Well, this
And
is
that's
a
what we
good
usually do.
this is a good segue where I can ask this last question, and then I'll shift it to some of the audience questions because they kind of link together. So this is a good question to kind of close things up. If a developer was sitting in the audience and wants to become an architect in this new agentic world, 5 years ago, the answer was to learn API led and data weave within MuleSoft. What's the answer now? What are the new stakes and everything? What direction should they learn? Should they stay within API or also learn AI too?
Maybe I can start with that. So the thing is, like, right now, I always it's not right now. It's always been the same thing. Uh, you always need the right foundation to build anything. That's one key thing. Uh, right now, if you're just speaking in the terms of like MuleSoft world, maybe it's just like the basic. Hey, how do you deal with data weave? How do you write data weave? How do you build your APIs? What is API led architecture? You need to get a more hands on and a better understanding of how the whole platform works. And once you understand that, AI is just another tool on top of this. It's essentially like enabling you to like make your tools work much more effectively, efficiently. That's the idea behind it. So if you really want to be like an AI agent, AI architect, I would say like start with your basics first. Understand like the core concepts of AI, like what's an LLM, how does it work, what is an agent loop, what does a harness really mean. Understand the core concepts, and once you're kind of building on top of it, you kind of like grasp what really is kind of like what each of these topics are really solving, and essentially you will get to the point of understanding, and that understanding will enable you to like answer questions based on your projects, and will help you towards your goal towards becoming either an architect or a bigger position like that.
Correct. Yeah. So
Mhm.
see, it's a really good question actually, because a lot of developers are thinking today, hey, how I'm going to become an AI developer, right? I've done MuleSoft for a while. See, certain things are evergreen. Okay, the tool set is evergreen. You are going to write system API. You are going to create composable architecture. You are going to create, you're going to understand all the security policies and all of that.
Mhm.
All of that is, evergreen. You are going to use all the skills. What you need to understand is, there is MCP. MCP is, you need to learn MCP. And then the most important is, ATA protocol. It's a protocol. The consortium has about 200 companies. This is the largest number of companies I saw in any specification actually. ATA specification you need to understand a little bit. Specifically in MuleSoft, you need to understand Omni Gateway. Omni Gateway, they are positioned as a critical piece for agentic infrastructure. And then you need to understand agent governance, execution guardrails. And the most important thing you have to understand is you need to know how to talk to your business, because it is no longer deterministic execution. It's no longer, interface as the integration layer has a lot of context to it now. See, earlier you did, like I said, call API A, API B, API C. Now there is a context to it. Whatever happens in your dev environment, even the flow may not be same in prod environment because the data is different. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The data is different. So there is the integration layer. There is a context to the integration layer. That's something that I think that may be that's something that may be a mental shift you have to make when you come to when you come to the AA world.
Yeah. And I can probably add to that from like the Salesforce perspective, because I've also seen that conversation even when it comes to like Agentforce. And I know this is MuleSoft, but sometimes MuleSoft and Salesforce can mix it. And in order to even understand like the Agentforce aspect of Salesforce, you also have to understand the core concepts of Salesforce. If you don't know like permissions and how to set up hierarchies and everything, that's going to be a struggle. Even trying to learn Agentforce. So like, I always tell people to go for, I know MuleSoft still has it and Salesforce still has theirs, the associate exams. Learn the core concepts. If you're wanting to do the AI stuff, like Siobhan had mentioned, learn the core aspects of things. Like I know Claude Code has it, where they have Claude 101 now, where you can learn the basics of how Claude works. It's not like base level, but there are other platforms that also try to bring it down a level enough to be able to understand it before you can start learning the more advanced concepts of everything.
Yes, and also knowing the core concepts of the different tools will give you the capability to decide whether you are selecting the right tool or not. Because that's also one of the challenges when you are on this kind of position. You need to understand the problem that you need to solve, but also confirm that the tool that you are selecting to do that, it does the job it has to do. That's very important. You shouldn't be forcing tools to do things that they are not. Sometimes people think that they have a silver bullet with certain software, and that's not the case. You always need to balance between what the tool provides and what's the objective and what the problem you are trying to solve. So finding the right tool for the right job.
Which, that's a good segue into one of the audience questions, which what is the best AI tool now that you would either recommend for use to learn? And this could apply to both learning to grow your skill set or even just to use for adding to your tool belt. And I'll pick on Juan again.
Sure. Well, I can talk about my experience. At first, I was like a bit regret learning too much about that. Then I embraced the change and I started learning. So, and my first tool was the GitHub Copilot with the IDE, not the CLI. Then I switched to the CLI, and then I switched again to the GitHub Copilot, but on the cloud. And now I'm pivoting between CLIs. So, and what I found very interesting is the learning of the concept of all the different components that are there. If I have to recommend a tool, I would say just find the cheapest one and start playing with that. You need to start doing things hands-on, and then check, okay, with this tool you do this thing. For example, one of the first things that I learned with AI was more with Agentforce, because that was part of the trail mix, and I started with that. Then like I said before, I switched to the tools on the IDE and start building software with that. And then I switched to the CLI, and then I switched to the cloud. And certain concepts, they remain the same. But being hands-on is like the key differentiator. It's like it will make you it will give you the knowledge to say, okay, I can use this tool for, like I was saying, for this, for that. And it doesn't matter that everyone's going with one to, and like I said before, with the company I'm working with, we started with open code. Then I started with cloud code, and switching tools gives you a more. It will not make you more like an expert on one tool, but at least it will open your mind to the different options that you have. So that way, what you will keep are the concepts. That's the key. Knowing what you can do with a tool like that will give you, I think, more power than being just an expert in one.
True.
Yeah.
I can add one thing to it. So I always, before even me starting learning anything, the first thing what I do is I try to understand like what's the problem that the tool is trying to solve, and based off that I kind of pick up my learning. So if I can understand the problem better, when I'm navigating through the tool, it gives me a better perspective towards what am I looking towards, and that gives you the right experience towards like, okay, this is what I need to understand about this tool versus I don't. These are the things that kind of becomes like a smoke screen, and you kind of pick the topics that really make the tool much more interesting. So in order for that to happen, I kind of utilize. I typically what I do is I typically have a conversation with something like a chat GPT. I turn on the voice mode and I'll just say like, hey, you know what? This is an article that I kind of found. Go through it and let's have a conversation about it. And I try to project my thoughts in it, saying that, you know what, this is what I'm thinking and this is what it kind of feels like. And what it responds back is more towards like a teaching situation now. It's more of a conversation and basically like a and as well as giving you the right set of ideas towards how to see what they're trying to project that. And not only that, sometimes I kind of like take like multiple articles, multiple blog posts, or YouTube videos. I kind of like combine everything into something like a notebook LLM, and I kind of use it on like whenever I'm driving, I just play them and listen it as a podcast for and it kind of helps me with such kind of things. And whenever I'm kind of working with um, any kind of coding tasks, I start off with something like Gemma 4. That's a Google's like a local model right now that's available on Olama. I kind of like start putting information in it, and I see like how it's actually functioning. And if the Gemma is able to like complete the whole task within like a few minutes, I haven't spent much money in there, and it's kind of a very good utilization of it. And the tokens are kind of like a very expensive thing, and it's going to be like more expensive over the period of time. So I'm trying to get out of like the way of get out of like paying extra for like something that can be done by a local model. And whenever it's relied on speed and efficiency, and it needs to complete a task within a particular time frame, only then I use a paid model, so that I have a I kind of like transition between tools like that and LLMs to make them more productive and efficient like that, and cost effective, of course.
Yeah. So then that kind of also answered the other question too, but I want to double check if anyone else wants to add input. But it's when you were starting out in your career with MuleSoft or starting to learn on the platform, outside of actual hands-on experience, what resources did you find the most helpful to your learning?
Is it just related to MuleSoft, or is it like any topic per se?
Well, you could elaborate that on, it's a fireside chat. We could elaborate that on AI. We could elaborate that on Slack. We can do anything we want.
I'm not sure how many people remember this, but there used to be a website, MuleSoft Training, my favorite site. I learned a lot from that site. I mean, at the beginning, the beginner stuff, and I started to watch everything. Whenever I feel like I'm out of touch in my fundamentals, I kind of jump back into that videos. I spent about like a week just remembering like everything that happened within the Mule environment, and just keeping myself up to date on it. And whereas for the second thing, I think the biggest learning experience for anything is experience. So you just have to tackle some projects and see those errors in action. Only then you will be able to understand how you can actually resolve them. Uh, you can be prepared without seeing the error, but the thing is, once you see an error and you kind of put in a solution, I kind of feel like that's a biggest way of learning anything. And I always say to most of my colleagues, saying that experience is the one which is kind of telling you, like, experience is not about like how you can actually deal the project. It's more towards how many errors you have seen and how you can actually resolve them quickly. It's all about it. So, and yeah, if you're planning on learning anything new, it's all about like finding the right tool and start looking into it, learning. I mean, just reading more and more about it. That's my take on it, personally.
Sarah, when you were talking about the champion program, remember?
Mm-hmm.
That's the Mule champion program, old one. In my case, for example, when I needed to learn MuleSoft and I was working on another integration platform, what I did, I set the first certification of using Mule 3.8, I think it was, a long time ago. I started to first of all, I made all the trainings like Shravan was mentioning. I did all that, watched the videos, and started to implement things that I was doing on a different technology, but with MuleSoft. It was like a huge change for me at the very beginning because I was not used to the fact that certain things you needed to do it yourself, like the logger aggregator, the monitor. And now the platform is providing a lot of things out of the box, but at that time, it was responsibility on the developer to keep track of where you are putting the logs, where and things like that. So it was quite a shift, but it was really useful to implement them, to start hitting the wall until you make them work. And at Mule 3, there were a lot of concept shift. Right now, I think Mule 4 looks very similar to what I was using at that time, that it was the Oracle SOA suite and the OSB suite. So I'm talking about old software. I don't know how they are now. I was used to that. And a lot of concepts, they were very different at that time. Similar thing on one end, but very different on the other one. But to make the shift, it was key to start with the implementations.
Yeah, and a lot of that has shifted too, because I know that I didn't get to experience, or I briefly got to experience at MuleSoft before it transitioned over. But then thankfully, there were community folks that post on YouTube and such that help a lot. Like, there's Shravan Linga. I'm gonna say his last name wrong. There's Alex Martinez. So many different folks that post amazing tutorials and everything that help. But I remember that MuleSoft website that you were talking about, Shravan. I like that so much, and I was like, it's gone. Now what am I supposed to do?
Yep. Now it's actually like part of the Trailhead, by the way.
Yes, everything's on Trailhead.
Yeah, I found that the whole course, and I was just revisiting, and it's a bit nostalgic for me.
The Dex 401.
Yeah.
Yeah, what it's missing in Trailhead is the data whip training. I think that's something that haven't seen there. And data whip is very. Now I am on a situation where sometimes I feel that you should know data whip, but now you don't need to be an expert like a year ago.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I'll just have Claude write my data wave. Just kidding.
See, the thing is, like right now, I'm starting to feel like I'm relying a bit more on my AI agents a bit, because I got too habituated with it, and I can confidently rely on it because it kind of produces the right output every time I'm working on it. So it's kind of like a bit scary, but it's also like really cool, you know. And sometimes what I kind of feel like is, maybe it's, we do need to pick up some tasks that are really are not repetitive enough. Maybe they do this is kind of challenging us, agents challenging us, telling us, you know what, pick up a task that's more challenging than what I can do. Again, that's just a bit of a thought process for me.
Exactly. So I may add to that. This is a really good point, actually.
Mhm.
See, what happens is, when AI tools were not there, most of our development was around happy path, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though you take any flow, there may be some 20 error paths used to be there. Then we kind of, eliminate this error happens only once in a year. I don't want to worry about it. Let me work on the happy path. And then by the time we are done with happy path, maybe we include 1 or 2 errors, and then the project is done. It generally works well, actually. There are some errors but generally it works well. So now maybe the new paradigm is happy path A is going to do. Let me identify all the error paths and give it to it and make it, rock solid, robust, right? I can actually give all the error, and there is an opportunity to do that. So it's really the definition of good AI developer comes to, can you identify all the things that can go wrong with this? What are the questions? What are the edge conditions? Can you identify? I mean, if somebody can, you cannot. The thing is, you cannot identify all the edge condition if somebody does not know all the business scenario. Somebody does not know what problem it is solving. They won't be able to identify all the edge conditions.
True.
So it actually puts back to the understanding the requirements, understand actual problem that they are trying to solve. Then they can articulate the edge conditions. So it's a actually it's a surprisingly it's a, I mean, we all, including me, we all are worried about, hey, whose job is going to be left? But it looks like, there is still the good amount of, the quality improvement is going to happen. The software quality is going to improve.
Yeah, the only thing that people will have to be aware of is not to rely too much on everything what the AI is throwing away, because it's generating. Yeah. Because people tend to rely too much on that, and that's something that it has to be a balance. And exactly, you can account, but you always need to be accountable of the things that the AI are creating. So you need to check it. You need to be aware of whatever, because I've seen that sometimes. I've heard stories from people that it was just doing commits because whatever the AI was creating was passing the test. Yeah. And the AI was generating code that it was hard coding, breaking rules, and exactly. People just committed because no, the tests are passing. No, it's not.
Exactly. So I'm saying the same thing what you said, Juan, in a different way. So if I am constructing a flow, if I tell AI that I'm going to create this flow, it will only create the flow. Unless you tell what can go wrong with the flow and address all of that, it won't do it. It will only do what you tell it to do.
Yeah.
So you tell all the errors.
So there is one thing to it. So it's about I think we have to build these skills within our systems and teach the AI to actually think through that process to get to that particular point. And this is one of the things that I kind of was playing with when I was doing one of the comparison between Cloud Code, Codex, and MuleSoft Vibes. One interesting thought kind of popped up because all the three platforms three tools can actually write MUnits. My question was, can it do MUnit parameterization? So here's what I did. I said, you know what? Write your code, write the flow, and do it with MUnit parameterization. And none of them were able to do it because it doesn't know what that is. And then basically I was actually pasting the code in, and it was trying to get it right, and it was failing. And then the more I was digging deeper, and I was actually telling how to write that whole code, and then I was telling Claude, hey, you know what? Look at this code, learn how it's actually working, check how the properties are being passed in, and everything. Only then it understood okay, parameterization is a particular skill. This is how it actually works. And for that particular training, it kind of ate up 50% of my GitHub Copilot tokens at that point. But essentially, the point itself is, a lot of times this AI, it doesn't know some of the fundamental topics, and we are the ones who have to tell it to do it in a particular way, and then you have to teach it in a way that it kind of gets that, and then basically you have to keep correcting it until you get it right.
Yeah.
So Juan and Jagan, you guys were pointing out the PRs and everything, and this is one of the reason I say do not let your AI kind of take this as a task for it to review, because it will miss these key concepts of how this needs to be tested and everything, and end-to-end test cases, when you are actually building with AI agents, it will only do the happy path like you guys were talking. And most of the time, it will say you know what you said is true, you're good. But in real world, it's not about the good data, it's about the bad inputs that it actually comes in. And most of the time, they kind of come into your Mule application if you don't secure it properly, and that's it. That kind of disrupts everything, So yeah, that's something that we have to be very vigilant about, and can't do anything there.
So then I will segue into this last question before I start the the drawing process. So for everyone that stayed on this call, if you stay a couple more minutes longer, I will be doing the Wheel of Fortune kind of situation and seeing what name pops out to win a certification voucher. But for this last question, this may be something we can or cannot answer. I'm leaning more to we might not be able to, but I'll leave the others to also confirm that. MuleSoft implementations look to be reducing compared to a few years back. Clients looking to be going to cloud providers or other tools. Any initiative from Salesforce to increase its integration market. I think this is something we may or may not be able to answer.
I would like to give you a quick suggestion or some kind of my thoughts on it. I like Jagan mentioned in the beginning, right? MuleSoft is the platform that kind of from the day one, it's kind of project not I mean not day one, but from API-led architecture, it was projecting towards the future, meaning like it's always pointing out towards this extensible nature of like how our IT organizations will be scaling up and everything. And MuleSoft is one of those people who kind of said like, you know what, when AI were to come up, this would be an extensible architecture to it. And guess what? Now we are at a future where we have AI agents consuming our APIs as tools and kind of like performing this all these cool things, right? The thing is like it's kind of projecting towards we are at a point where the future is here, and your architecture is not being replaced, it's just extended further. And now if you were to go further down in this route, I'm pretty sure this architecture is going to scale further down to a bigger technologies as we adopt them, you know. And I kind of feel like it's going to be an ever growing platform rather than like this transitions between different tools might happen, but essentially people might come back again. Uh, Once maybe that's my thought process on it. Uh, well, I did play with like other tools like N8N or Zapier or Workato and other tools. I really like their way of like implementing things. I agree, but when it comes to when I'm kind of like trying to extend this nature like towards like if I were to see this tool like something like a before AI, I would not even think about it. But now that I'm seeing like how the MuleSoft API-led architecture adapted to this whole AI, it kind of gives me a perspective towards in the future. As the new technology comes in, it's just going to be like much better, and it's going to be much easier for our organizations to like adapt it and move forward. Um, that's my thoughts on it actually.
I am still working on this slowly but
All
surely.
right. I
Yeah.
will add a couple of things on what Shravan just said. It will depend always on the use case, on the problem that you need to solve. In the past, I've been working with OSP, was an enterprise service bus, and I needed to integrate 200. We have 200 services on that service bus. We needed to perform tests, and we were working on not on the cloud. We were with bare metal on the client, so we needed to be on site to do all those testing and all those kind of stuff. And what I'm going with this is so it will depend
Mhm.
on what scenario you are, where things like Workato or things with less, let's say, infrastructure will work. And sometimes MuleSoft is overkill for a use case. So,
Mhm.
and the example I was given about the OSP, that client at some point ended up migrating to MuleSoft. But what had happened? Since they were already using an integration platform, certain things were reusable because what they did, they just shift and changed the middle part. And that's the important takeaway is that you need to understand the problem that you need to solve and always try to find like the right solution. So I wouldn't say that one is better than the other. It will always depend on the problem that you need to solve.
Yeah, one important thing, his question is Salesforce trying to do anything about it? See, the thing is, for the AI and agentic world, the data is very important. So Salesforce is well aware of the question that you are asking, the gentleman asking this question. Yes, Salesforce is aggressively pursuing this. That's the reason, there is a lot of discussions around data. There are no new products around data. So I have a feeling, 5 years from now, we may say that, Salesforce is still the winner. I feel that that's what is going to be the case because, there is a lot of data is there. I mean, I can take my API and run into Bedrock. I don't have the data there, right? Data is still here. So I think that's going to make them winner, and Salesforce is aware of it, and they are aggressively pursuing it.
True.
And with that, I can share my screen again. I'm just deleting some names, making sure everyone is in there because there were a couple people that left. How dare they? Hello. Where's my window? All right, we got the
Nice.
wheel.
Nice.
Really cool.
It says click to spin. Let's see who's gonna win the first one.
Woohoo! Shari got one.
So
Congratulations.
if you can drop
Is she
your
there?
email.
Is Shari there?
I think she's there.
Yeah, she's in my project.
Awesome. So she can drop her email in the chat, or if she can share it with you.
I will drop her email right now, so you can give it to her.
And then we have one more. So let's click this.
Here you go. This is Shari's email.
And then M8 also won. So if you can drop your email in the chat, and then I will send out your certifications either today or tomorrow, and you'll have a free certification voucher in your email. Outside of that, thank you for everyone that attended. This was actually a very fantastic and riveting conversations and everything. I'm hoping to do this quarterly. I had a lot of eager MuleSoft architects that also wanted to do this, but it was a first come, first serve, and we got these three amazing people that joined in. So with that, I will give everyone 8 minutes back. We're a little early, but thank you for everyone for joining, and thank you to all our speakers as well for a riveting conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Brandon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm just taking a picture of the emails.
Sure.